That would be quite a good job if I could be Jeff Bridges' stand-in.
That's a horrible life, because you know that the rug ties the whole room together.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I was thinking as I was getting ready for you, and I was getting ready. I was setting everything up, and I was looking in the downstairs mirror, and I go, man, I've lost some weight. I look good. I've got my black trimming shirt on. I got this macho flannel on, and then I turn Zoom on, and you look like Jabba the Hutt after he was murdered and left in a lake for a month. Zoom has a way of saying, you're not as great as you think you are.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does, sir.
So thanks so much for talking to me again. And I want to talk to you about this book. And you and I have emailed back and forth and texted back and forth. And I want to jump in by, I had been weaned by you from the other book. So I had your style down and I had everything, and I was completely expecting this to be that book. And it's not that book. And the first couple of minutes I'm going, well, wait a minute, where's all the funny stuff? Where's all this stuff? Where's the stuff where it leads? And then I started to like it, because it was almost like I was walking along with you and we were just talking, and it would bounce around and it would come back, and it was completely different style than your other book.
Well, thank you.
I want to let you introduce it, because you went on you took a hike across Spain to try to figure it out, to figure out all the mysteries of life. So I'll let you tell you a little bit about how the book came and what was the plan.
Well, I was unemployed, and that can be very depressing. And I have struggled with depression, and thought, okay, well, I got to do something. And I'd heard of the Camino de Santiago, which in Spanish means the way of St. James. And it started as a pilgrimage across northern Spain to the place where supposedly St. James, the apostle's body, is interred. It's not, but whatever. And so I looked into it, and
you can buy those crosses in Jerusalem that are made from the actual cross too.
Yes, of course there are.
The splitter. Yeah, those are all. Yeah,
of course there are. And so I thought about this this journey, and that perhaps it would help clear my head, and perhaps help me reconnect to what is the root source of happiness. Because we think in terms of the two far opposites being joy and despair, happiness and unhappiness.
Right.
And so I thought, okay, well, I'll get out there and I'll put everything that I own on my back, and I'll do this pilgrimage and talk to people, make notes, and see if I can find out what that nugget is that we're all looking for, that thing that we're all seeking, which we assume, is happiness. But the conclusion that I came to was different than what I started out with.
There's a bunch of phrases, and I want to make sure I get this right. There's a bunch of amazing phrases, and I don't want to jump into all of them yet because they're just so good. But you do mention this, and I think this is just beautiful. Part of what you discovered or you wrote down is the goal is someone to love, something to do, something to look forward to. Yeah, I guess that's it. Something to love, something to do, and something to look forward to.
Yes,
which is genius.
It is. That was not mine. As I noted, I was talking to a fellow, and he said, I was like, wow, that's incredibly deep. Where did you come up with that? And he said, no, that was in one of Vince Flynn's Mitch Rapp novels. And Mitch Rapp is a secret agent assassin. And so I'm like, wow, man, out of the mouths of hitman.
Yes.
Who knew?
As he's gutting a ninja, he's probably saying those words.
Yes. And at that point, the thing that was plaguing me was I didn't have anything to do. And when you don't have anything to do, thus you have no money, and money's fairly useless except for the fact that it buys you freedom, right?
Right.
So I didn't have anything to do, and I didn't have anything to look forward to. And it occurred to me when I heard that was something I needed to figure out.
Now, going back, and I know on the first book you explained that you took some liberties as far as time. So you didn't come home and say, sweetheart, I've just walked away from my white collar job and I'm going to go work at Burger King. There was a gap there, but still, your wife said, sure, sweetie, go off and be a construction worker for you. Go do all this. And then your wife again said, sure, sweetie, go ahead and walk the Camino Trail across Spain to try to figure it out. Do you have pictures of her in a safe that you don't want to get out? Is she just a saint? How did this come about?
The work that I was doing was at home consulting. And my wife was also working at home. And this was pre-COVID, right? People weren't used to this. So we're both working out of our 850 square foot condo. And I think I could have gotten permission to join the Taliban just to get me.
Sure, let me back. Yeah, everything. You better go now. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So that was a fairly easy go. And the fact of the matter is, walking the Camino is cheaper than living at home. The pilgrimage. This Camino de Santiago is, although it was very important to me, there are 50 blogs and Facebook pages, and for a lot of people, walking the Camino, that'll be the high point of their life.
Sure.
They've never done anything adventurous or so yeah, to a certain degree, there's an obsession about it. If you Google it,
Really?
you will find unlimited information about it, and people writing about it and discussing it, and when they're going and when they're coming back. I heard of it through an office colleague of mine. I said, "What's the best vacation you've ever gone on?" She said, "I went to see a friend in Spain, and she gave me a backpack, and for like a week we walked along this road, and we'd stop in these little villages, and I think it was a pilgrimage or something." So that was the first clue to do it. But I had also heard of it. Emilio Estevez directed a film called The Way, which is slang for the Camino. And his father starred in it. And it was a okay film. I think it left some things to be desired, but I had seen it. And so I'd seen some of the scenery, and they took out a lot of the misery and added in a lot of the fun.
Yeah, which you were happy to add in your book. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So walk us through what this is. If we're all, naive Americans like myself, where does the Camino Trail start? Where does it go through, and where does it end?
Let me give you a little background. It was started around 1100 when the word came out from Spain that they had discovered St. James' tomb. And some pilgrims started walking to pay their respects or to pay homage. And the King of Spain, Alfonso II, declared St. James the patron saint of Spain, and talked to the Pope and got the Pope to agree that anybody who completed the pilgrimage was granted a plenary indulgence. And a plenary indulgence is once you receive it, you are as sinless as the moment you were baptized. Okay. Now, I'd screw that up in about 1 second. So
right.
I would hope that if I got a plenary indulgence, I'd be struck by lightning immediately. So once the plenary indulgence was granted, the only other 2 places that you could do a pilgrimage to and get a plenary indulgence was the Holy Land and Rome, right? Well, those are both pretty significant walks. And Spain was appealing to people in England, France, Holland, all of those areas, Germany. So it turned into a superhighway of pilgrims, and towns started popping up, and churches started popping up. And although there was certainly a vast number of collection plates along the way, the church participation was truly altruistic. Most of these were peasants, serfs, that were walking with like a stick, the hobo thing where you've got a little bag there with all your worldly possessions.
Yep.
So they would assist them in their pilgrimage. And so the tradition of dorms along the way came up, and it turned this little string of across Spain into a very thriving economy. And there's a lot of people walking to cause towns to be created. So there are pilgrimage routes all the way from the Netherlands to Galicia in northern Spain. And I did meet a gal who'd walked from the Netherlands. But what is considered the main Camino now starts just over the border in France, and you walk over the Pyrenees, and then you're in Spain, and it runs 490 miles to the cathedral. The going over the mountains, nobody told me about that. That was no good. That was very very bad. I didn't walk the full Camino. I did not intend to. I set aside 3 weeks and wanted to cover about 250 miles. The people who do it, the whole thing, and do it in 30 days, I got nothing but respect for, because that is a brutal regimen for a civilian. It wouldn't be for a young Marine or soldier, because that's what you do. You walk long distances with heavy things on your back, but it is not easy. It is not easy.
The Prioleau that ended his journey, how was he different than the one that began?
Very different, because of the ultimate lesson that I learned. to go into that?
Go ahead. Yep, absolutely.
Well, there were a few things that I put together as I processed this this journey. I noticed in these small towns that they all had a plaza, and every day at 5:30, the world stopped and the town came pouring into the plaza, and it was kids running around playing soccer and injuring themselves. It was parents drinking wine and ignoring the fact that their kids were falling off of statues. And there were old people just watching it all unfold, probably thinking how happy they were that they didn't have kids. So that's sort of, okay, so that sunk in. And then I noticed that no one had fashionable clothes. Nobody had a nice car. There were no nice houses. Nobody was on their phone. It was, you do your job, whatever that may be. And from what I could see, it was, a job done with pride. Even the guys, in their orange uniforms, cleaning up the town. And I thought, well, in the United States, even our middle class is really striving, more stuff, more fancy vacations, more of this, bigger, better, faster, more. And my guess is that a lot of these people have never been 30 miles from where they live. But they seemed very happy. And then I started thinking about my life on the Camino, right? I mean, everything that I own is on my back. I would text once a day with my wife, maybe a phone call every 3 days. And I thought about some of the other phrases that I had heard. One of them was from a South African guy who said, I asked a bunch of people, what do you think is the root of happiness? And he said, well, in Africa, obviously we have a lot of extreme poverty. But if you go out to these villages, these people own nothing, right? But they seem quite happy. It's because they think of how much more they have than nothing. And those of us in the West tend to think of how much less than everything we have.
Right.
And so all of these things started adding up. And I realized that these villagers, as opposed to joyful, they were content. And I found that I was quite content with my life. I'd walk all day, and then I'd eat and drink some beer and sit in the plaza. I wasn't watching Netflix or,
right.
Doing any of the recreational things that we think of in the West. And so I found that they were content. I found that I was content. I thought about the people in Africa who have very little, but they're content with what they have. And that was when it dawned on me that the opposite of unhappiness is not happiness, it's content. I have enough. I am content with who I am. And when you are content, happiness is sort of the default position. We Americans love to save up our money or not save it up and put it on a credit card and go to the islands and eat seafood and enjoy drinks on the beach and watch a magnificent sunset. But what we don't remember is that while we're there, back in the States, there's somebody who lives in a trailer park who's grilling seafood and enjoying a drink and watching the same sunset. Right. What I was able to do once I understood contentment was to then understand that it's a decision, right? Happiness is something that happens to you. In contentment, the default position is happiness. And you make the decision, I have enough. You make the decision, if I have a friend with a really nice boat, and when I go out on it, I'm a little bit jealous as opposed to living in the moment, you don't have to go on the boat, right? Mm-hmm. And so you make peace with who you are and where you're at. And you will fall into contentment.
Now, were you able to keep some of that when you came back? I mean, when you came back, did you put that hat back on?
I have not taken my Camino hat off yet.
That's amazing.
And everybody goes back to the fact that I believe it's a decision, right? That you can say to yourself over and over and over again, I have enough, right? I have rich friends that, go out to fancy dinners and order $100 bottles of wine. Well, I can't do that. Mm-hmm. So instead of being jealous, I formed a new group of friends. I didn't ditch my old friends, but I can't afford to go to dinner with them. But I have a new tribe that are socioeconomically more paired with me. So we go out for burgers and beers.
Right.
We don't go out for $90 fillets.
And you probably laugh just as hard with the burgers and beers that you would have with the $100 bottles of wine. Right.
Absolutely. And, at the end of the day, eat a fillet, eat a burger, a good burger is pretty damn good. And I think it's important to align yourself with a socioeconomic tribe in order to achieve contentment.
And I never really thought about that, but if you don't, then you have good people that you are avoiding, or you have good people that you don't want to be rude to, which is creating that jealousy, even though you don't want it to be there. So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And it also includes if your current tribe is in your socioeconomic level, but they spend more than they should, right? They're running their lives up on credit cards. That's not healthy. I don't need to be around that.
Right.
And like I say, I'm still friends with the much wider group, but I see those guys, on a Saturday or for lunch, or, we just don't. When they go to the Bahamas, I don't, right? And so I have two separate but very dear sets of friends, and I hang around with the ones that I feel more content around.
Mm-hmm. Have you had resentment? Have you had the first group that misses you, that talks about your absence? Or
yes, but as they have grown more successful financially, great bunch of guys. Eventually, after me saying no, I can't do it enough times, that they know that I'm not going to go on a fancy vacation with them, or they know that I'm not going to go to Smith and Lewinsky for a $90 fillet. So they, they just stopped asking me, which was fine. I think that they're sensitive and realistic enough to know, I really shouldn't ask Prioleau if he wants to go get dinner with us, because I know what he's going to say.
Right.
And so, yeah, I still see all those guys frequently. I just don't try and balance my debit card against theirs.
Now, you said you've got your Camino hat on and you've never taken it off. There have not been moments where you've coveted. There have not been times when you said, "Man, I miss my pool," or "I want to do this." There's got to have been times when you wanted to take that off, right? Or no?
Hadn't happened because well, it's a place that I put myself in. And I decide to stay there, right? I mean, think about joy, right? Joy is fleeting. It's babies and weddings and when Auburn beats Alabama in football, right? And those things come and go, right? And so you can't spend your time seeking joy. And what we tend to do as Americans is to put happiness out of reach, right? If I can only get to point A, I'll be happy. You get to point A. Well, actually, I need to get to B. Right. And then I need to get to C. And, we even do it with our hobbies. Most golfers are out there, mad at themselves when they finished a round. It wasn't a great round. And so happiness is, we place it out of reach, but contentment is within reach. And you just don't push yourself. You don't allow yourself to go outside those boundaries.
I'm very impressed that you've stayed in that place that you've chosen. But could you have gotten there without going on the Camino Trail?
I don't think so.
Okay. And this is nothing that you find in a book. This is nothing you find. You had to experience it.
I did, yes. Hopefully, the argument that I put forward in the book can save somebody the time and the money and the hassle and the pain of walking the Camino. But I wouldn't have figured it out if I hadn't gone.
Now, I wrote down a couple because I didn't want to mess them up. Just of some of the ways that you described some of these places you went through, and this is one of my favorites. You said the charming Spanish streets where cars cannot drive, and I just love that sentence: charming Spanish streets where cars cannot drive. And that just says everything. That just was it, as you described the siestas, and you're coming into these towns and there's nobody there, and just these charming Spanish streets where cars cannot drive.
As I was walking down some of these streets, and the cafe chairs spill out into the street, and a car can't drive. I was thinking, what an American would think this is such an inconvenience, and then one of the things that came to mind was in the United States when we do subdivisions, why are the roads so freaking wide? It's because if you have a car parked on both sides, a fire truck has to be able to go down the street. And I thought, gosh, how did the Spaniards get away with this? Well, duh, I looked it up. And instead of building a city around the freaking fire engine, they build the fire engine around the city.
Nice.
And, there are a lot of things. The reason that they walk across the street to the little grocer is because you can't park near where you live, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to Costco and buy a 55-gallon drum of dill pickles, you have to get it from where you're parking a mile away,
right,
to where you live.
Because you need a 55-gallon drum of pickles.
Yes, of course,
You
who among us
America?
Need?
Absolutely.
And so there are a lot of things that sort of began to make sense. And a lot of the Spanish towns are in what architects call a human scale. And it's why when you go to Europe and you walk around these towns, they feel right? It's because nothing is above 3 stories. And once you go above 3 stories, the human psyche starts to feel in a way alienated. And so these small towns, my hometown, Charleston, the historic district is like that. And people come to vacation and they'll spend a couple of days just walking around downtown. And I'm sure they're trying to figure out, why does this feel so right? And it's because it's built on a human scale. You can't talk to your friend and say, hey, let's get together at Starbucks. There's one in between us, so it's only a 20-minute drive for me and a 20-minute drive for you, right? In these small Spanish towns, you walk across the street, and you have to make the decision to live near your friends. So all of that, I think, sort of comes together and forms a real community. A lot of these villages are kind of, you can't get there from here. A tourist, if you put 100,000 American tourists in Spain, 0 of them would go to, this 100-mile chain of little towns I walked through.
Now, you had a very interesting experience, and I want to let you, I don't want to mess it up, but you came across a writer, another writer.
Yeah.
And you explained in the book, you did a great job of, and you and I have talked a little bit about this, the definition. Well, I think I was telling you this 20 years ago when I said, oh, I wrote a couple books. People go, hey, that's great. Let me carry your bag. Are you okay? Now, when you say I've written a couple books, they go, ooh, do you have a YouTube channel too?
Right.
It means nothing because self-publishing is just so huge.
Right.
So you went through this, you met this man, and you wrote about the fact that you're trying to gauge him out. Is this guy real, or is this guy? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. When you, well, and I'm sure you do this, if somebody writes a book and they self-publish it, you don't want to make them feel bad about it.
Right.
So, the deal. It's sort of, there's who's your publisher? And, they'll generally say, it's print on demand, or I self-published it, because it's so ordinary now. Right.
I think a lot of people now don't know there's an alternative.
Yeah.
I think it's been around so long that people just think. I was at not to get off task, I was at a book event with my publisher a couple of years ago, and some guy came up to her and said, how much do you charge? And she goes, no, I'm a traditional publisher. We don't charge anything. And he just got this glossy look. He goes, no, really, how much? So I think there are many people that just assume that's what Stephen King does. That's what these people do.
Right.
I love the way you said that in that book. And it does bother me because published is a big deal to me.
Right.
And if I write 6 pages and I hit print, I'm not published. I always feel like that has been stolen a little bit.
Right. It cheapens the art. As do celebrity autobiographies, as if Suzanne Summers can write a 300-page book about her life. I'd be surprised if she can fill in a check.
Right.
And, if you Google celebrity autobiographies, it is just screamingly funny about how many of them there are.
Oh, yeah.
And, ghostwriters, which I wouldn't do, say, I had 2 meetings with the celebrity. There was a play off Broadway, and I don't remember the name of it. And what it was 6 actors up on stage reading phrases out of celebrity autobiographies. And the reviews by the critics were unbelievable. It's like one guy saying, I literally thought I was going to wet my pants. I was laughing so hard. And all they were doing was reading clips out of these moron books.
Right.
So, yeah, the whole thing bums me out. It cheapens the art.
I could talk this publishing stuff with you all day long, but one thing you said in the book that was really interesting is you said everything's going along. You're bringing in all this data. You're making huge discoveries, and then you checked Facebook.
Yeah, and I hadn't checked it in a couple of weeks, and there on Facebook remained all the hate and the snark and the attempting to show a picture of my family so it looks better than your family.
Right.
And, Facebook is very addicting. I would say, especially to perhaps a writer, because people post stupid things and then you want to respond in decent English and explain how they're wrong. What a waste of time. I do it. But I do like keeping up with friends and stuff. But yeah, it was I certainly came to realize very quickly that social media is not a good thing.
And what's interesting about that? I watched this documentary the other day, and this story gathered so much media hype. It became viral. You had these millions of people who called themselves, internet sleuths that are going to solve the crime. And it went on for years, and they've got theories. And what was fascinating to me is you get to the end, and the documentary absolutely kept some of this stuff from you. And you get to the end and you realize it wasn't a murder. It was this, it was this, it was this. This is what happened. But those internet sleuths are going, no, it didn't. It's that musician. And they're going, no, the musician was in Mexico at the time. But instead of saying, okay, cross him off, they go, well, don't you think he could have figured that out? Don't you think he could have? So the whole point of this is we live in a world where it's more important that I'm right than I change my mind, because changing my mind is the biggest indignity that there ever can be. And I'm watching this going, well, just because he had signed papers and people saw him and his passport says that doesn't mean he didn't do it. Yeah, it sort of does mean he didn't do it. Exactly, that's what it means. He didn't do it.
Right.
But we can't be wrong anymore. We can't say, you've given me something to think about. We can't say, I'm going to sleep on that and I'm going to mull this around. This is our status. We get the tattoo and we're not moving.
Right. The permanent reminder of a temporary feeling.
Right. Exactly. It's crazy. But I love talking to you. I wish I lived nearer to Charleston, because I'm definitely in the burger and beer financial status, so you wouldn't have any problem with me.
Yes, sir.
And I love the fact that you have been able to keep this. And I know this is going to sound condescending, and I don't mean it to be, but I'm proud of you that you've been able to keep that place that you're in.
Well, thank you. It comes back to most emotions happen to you, but once you really grind down to what makes me content, that's a decision.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're house poor, maybe it's time to downsize. Maybe it's
Right.
time to surprise yourself and your friends and your family, and just do it, because being house poor sucks. Being car poor sucks.
Yeah.
And you just make that decision. I am going to point myself towards things and people that make me feel content.
Nice. Nice. I'm going to try to follow your example. All right, Prioleau, thank you so much. Enjoy talking to you. I'm like I said, I'm awed by you took this experience and you were able to keep it, and I'm going to do my best to try to synthesize this into a video where we can get some bullet points and try to help some other people.
I hope you will. I hope you'll put on your contentment cap, because every day you can get up and decide to put it on.
Right.
You know, you had talked about my thoughts aren't real, right? My thoughts are just my thoughts. It's not reality.
Right.
And so if you start thinking to yourself, I'm really not very good at my job, and maybe I wasn't that good at my past jobs, you can make the decision that, you know what, I don't think I'm that good at my job, but I'd have gotten fired if I wasn't pretty good at it. So again, it's making peace with who I am, where I am, what I am,
right,
and going from there.